Most of us have probably had a job where at some point we wondered, what on earth am I doing here? Well, my grandparents were missionaries in Brazil for over 40 years and they loved that job, but they knew they wanted to do that pretty much from an early age. So throughout college and seminary, they always looking for a summer job and work in churches somewhere. But one summer, my grandfather couldn't find any work in church world, so he grudgingly took a job at a local paper factory. Hot, smelly, nasty work, seemed like a total waste of a summer. Well, fast forward several decades, they're serving in Brazil, and at one point they're running a printing press, and the new government came to town, didn't like missionaries, so they banned the missionaries from buying paper for the press. My grandfather reached way back to what he learned back in the summer in the paper factory, and he remembered cigarette paper was the same weight as the paper they were printing the Bibles on. So the missionaries go buy thousands of reams of cigarette paper, crank up the printing press, and they distribute thousands and thousands of Bibles printed on cigarette paper, maybe even saving a few lungs in the process. Well, welcome to Sunday's Best 3 Minutes, where we're not discussing whether or not print is dead, but we are taking one big idea from Sunday's message and bringing it to you in that portable package. So this week we're kicking off a new series called Such a Time as This, and the idea is that there's moments in our lives where our positioning and God's purposes meet at a critical juncture for each of us to make a significant difference, even when those moments don't come in the way we might expect, like my grandfather being positioned at the paper factory. Well, throughout the series, we're going to be looking at the Old Testament book of Esther, who has an incredible such a time as this moment that literally saves her people from extinction. But at the start of the story, Esther's a nobody. In the margins, a peasant just scraping by to get by. She's living in exile with her people who've been conquered by the Persians. It looks like all the machinations of the universe have conspired against her doing anything super significant. But in Esther 1, we see God at work to make a way in ways she's not even imagining or asking for. That God is the power over these machinations, moving in things outside of her control to position her for such a time as this moment. Many of us feel in our lives like they're loaded up with obstacles that are outside our control. Economic downturns, medical challenges, your family of origin was a train wreck. I want to invite you this week as we start this series to write those things down. And then, if you're willing, I want to invite you to pray a prayer of faith. These things are real and they're hard, but there's a larger power who can go to work, even in the midst of all of this, to make a way where right now it doesn't look like there's much of a way to go forward. And maybe even pray in faith, declaring and trusting that God's at work in ways you might not see for months or years, to position you, maybe even unexpectedly, for one of your such a time as this moments, because you never know what God might do with you at the paper factory. Thanks so much for joining us this week on Sunday's Best 3